What's up guys, John here and welcome to Baltimore Retro Gaming. And today I want to talk about how I play PlayStation 1 and PSP games. And there's been a lot of talk about the PlayStation 1 Classic recently. You know, people hate it, few people love it, I guess. The games on it are whack. Just recently there's been a breakthrough. You can mod the system, you can put whatever games you want on it, doesn't matter which region they are. And that's all fine and good, but you can do that on a Raspberry Pi, you can do that on an NVIDIA Shield. So in today's video, I want to show you guys how I play most of my PS1 and PSP games, but I'm going to focus on PS1, and that's on the GPD XD, a device that I strongly recommend if you're into PlayStation 1 gaming. But anyways guys, GPD XD, let's check it out. Now, I've done a few videos on this device before, but, you know, the PS1, it's all the hype right now, so I figure I'd show you guys how I play most of my PS1 games, and it's like this. Now, the cool thing is yeah, it looks like a 3DS XL, right? I mean, it looks like a knockoff 3DS XL. It's got a little sticker, a 32 gigabyte sticker on the back. But this thing is nothing short of awesome. This is no 3DS XL, so let me get this thing going for you. So I'm going to jump right into the PlayStation 1 emulator. This is the one I use, the Ppsspp for Android. This is my favorite. You can actually use an emulator that's in Happy Chick, and you can also use the PS1 emulator in RetroArch, but this is by far the easiest in my opinion. And this is downloadable off of the Android store for free, or you can download the APK and install it that way. So these are just a few games that I have on here. This thing is 32 gigabytes. There's a 64 gig model, but you can add an SD card for, I think you can add over 100 gigs, so you can add a good bit of games on here. And if you're just adding like SNES or NES ROMs, you can easily get the whole ROM set. So let's just pick, here, this is a good game. All these games run great on the GPD XD, but Tony Hawk 2, I've been playing a lot of this game lately. But as you guys know, I love my shoot 'em ups and my RPGs, so I play mostly RPGs and shoot 'em ups. But I just want to show you, you know, how this thing runs, and Tony Hawk runs great. And I'm going to show you guys in a little bit, you know, how I hook this thing up to the TV, you know, what kind of controller to use, if there's any kind of input lag, things like that. But I feel like you guys are going to be pretty impressed. So this thing, you know, I've played this game recently on my PS3 using the Ps1 emulator on my PS3. And, you know, obviously it looks a lot better on a smaller screen. Let's see. One thing I don't miss about these older games is the load times, and the load times are still present using the emulator, so. And for a game like Tony Hawk, you really want to use an external controller, even if you're playing it in handheld mode, just because, I mean, there's no substitute for a controller in your hand. I mean, these controls are pretty good, but trust me, for a game like this, you're going to want to use an external controller. Any kind of like high action game, like a turn-based RPG, like these buttons are just fine, and overall they're just fine anyway. But for all those sticklers out there, yeah, you might want to get an external controller. It's kind of hard for me to play this game through the camera, but I mean, you can see the game runs great. Anyway, that's enough of that. So all the games run great on here. So now you guys are probably familiar with this emulator if you use Android devices. It's Ppsspp. Let's go ahead and tap on that. Now, usually when I'm emulating or if I'm playing PSP games, I'm obviously playing them on my PSP. And I mainly use this device for PS1 emulation, but the PSP emulator works great. So, and you can do like frame skipping. You can adjust a lot of things on here. So the PSP emulator, Ppsspp, does have a lot of options for, you know, color, frame skipping, customized controls, you know, stuff like that. But it runs just as good as, I actually prefer the screen on the GPD XD to the PSP, but, you know, that's just me. And this is Dracula X Chronicles for the PSP. I actually own this game physically. It's like a $20 PSP game, pretty good if you're into Castlevania type of games. Yeah, so those are just those two emulators, the PS1 and the PSP emulator, but I'll probably do another video on this later. I mean, if you use Happy Chick, you got PS1, you got Dreamcast, you got Famicom. I mean, there's so many different systems you can emulate with this. I mean, the only thing you can't emulate with this is like all the current gen stuff and like PS2. Xbox, you can do, some of the newer stuff. Like I said, you can do GameCube. So I'd say like anything 2000 and below, you can emulate. Anything 2000 and after, you might want to stick with buying the system. Okay, so before you get started hooking this thing up to the TV, you're going to need your GPD XD or your GPD Wind. This is the older model. This is just the GPD XD. You're going to need your micro USB cable, just a regular micro USB cable. You might want one with a little bit of length to it. And you're going to need an HDMI cable. So this is an HDMI mini to HDMI. The back of this thing just has an HDMI mini output. So there it is right there. And you're also going to need this micro SD to USB adapter. And what that's for, you're just going to need to plug this thing in to the back, because this thing doesn't have Bluetooth, unfortunately. It's one of the downfalls of this thing. But just want to plug that into the back so you have your USB cable. And then you can plug your controller right in. And you can actually use it on the go like this if you want. Like I said, for games like Tony Hawk, it works really well. But as you can see, it'll register it immediately. So see, I'm clicking through the stuff right now. So it registers immediately. And look, guys, this is the only controller I've ever gotten to work with a GPD XD. I've tried controllers like this. There's Bluetooth controllers that you supposedly are supposed to work on here. I've tried PS3 controllers. I've tried Wii U Pro controllers. I've tried a few different kinds of controllers. This is the only one that I can work and configure, but that's okay because this is probably the best controller out of all of them. So I'm totally okay with that. Okay, so once you have everything hooked up, you're going to have, and you can't really do anything with the screen, it's going to stay on, but you have your controller hooked up to your GPD XD, and then you got it HDMI'd out to your monitor or screen or whatever the hell you're using. So let's click on the PlayStation 1 emulator. And now this is going to be a major drawback for some people, but one thing that I noticed, before I ever play any PS1 games, I have to map the controller every time. And I understand that's going to be like a big deal for a lot of people. But you go into settings, you go to gamepad, and then you go to map hardware buttons. So it's very important that you map like your, okay, so like the left, like the triangle button, your circle button, cross, square, L1, R1, L2, and R2 buttons. Okay, those are the only ones you really need to map because these are start and select, like your R3 and your L3, and you can map those to buttons on the controller, but you really don't need to. So anyways, so the buttons are mapped. Just click back out of everything, and now we can click on whatever game we want. I just showed Tony Hawk. I was going to play Tony Hawk again. Here. Shoot 'em up. Play a shoot 'em up. And it plays great, guys. Like I'm saying, there's no input lag. I actually shot a video right before this of me playing Tony Hawk 2. And then I thought about all the music in the background. And I was like, oh, God, I'm going to get a copyright strike if I post that. So I figured I'd just turn the sound off and play a shoot 'em up. But it's weird pressing R3 as a start button, but it works. This is a good game. This is actually a game. This is a shooter you're going to want to buy. If you want it physical, you're going to want to buy the import version because it's way cheaper. But this actually, Shinryu, it actually did come out in North America. Believe it or not. I never knew about it when it came out, but it's out. It's not super expensive. It's like one of those like $60 shooters, but it's really good. I highly suggest it. I think I've done a video on this game, actually. But yeah, guys, the controls, they feel solid. I could play this game. If I was blindfolded and I had a PS1 controller in my hand, I guess not blindfolded, but if I didn't look at the GPD XD or the PlayStation 1, I wouldn't know which is which. Now, I would say the GPD XD probably has better visuals than a PS1 or a PS1 game playing on a PS3, but that's just because of the breakthroughs they've made in all these emulators over the years. But yeah, it plays great. So that's what everything looks like when you have it hooked up to a monitor or a HD TV. So guys, the GPD XD, you guys copping or what? Like, yes, I know this isn't officially licensed, branded piece of equipment or anything like that, but the things that you can do with this are pretty incredible. Now let's talk about the price. So this is just the GPD XD. At the time this came out, there was a more powerful version that ran a Windows-based system instead of an Android-based system. That was called the GPD Win. You know, that was like at the time, like maybe a $400 or $500 piece of equipment. You know, I didn't want to spend that kind of money. So I got this GPD XD for $100. The guy said it was used, the guy that I got it from, but it was pretty much brand new. It was in all its original packaging. Nothing's wrong with it. So I'd say about anywhere from $80 to $100 is a good price to pay for one of these. Now, I know that seems expensive, but think about the PlayStation Classic now. That thing's $100 and you can only play PlayStation 1 games on it. And it's a bitch. Like, you got to do you got to do stuff with this too, with the emulators and stuff. So I shouldn't even say that, but you know, you have other systems available to you. Plus, you can play this thing on the go. You can't take no PS1 Classic on the go unless you have like a battery pack and a monitor and all this stuff. But this, you can play on the go, save your progress. There's save states. You can play at work. You can take it home, play on the TV. And you know, when I'm playing RPGs, being able to play on the go and then play at home is great. And that's probably a reason I should own a Nintendo Switch. I don't even own a Switch yet. My kid's got one, but I don't. You know, when I played Persona 5, I actually played and beat Persona 5 this year, and it took me a really long time. I mean, that's an extremely long game, but, you know, yeah, I take my Vita and remote play on my PS4 with it, but that, you know, it works. It works good for the turn-based RPGs like Persona 5. I did make some progress playing on my Vita, but let's just say it was a Tales of game. You know, an action RPG or an action game or a shoot 'em up. You know, me remote playing on a Vita, that's not really going to cut it, because if there's any lag and I die and I didn't save my progress, I'd be pissed. So, you know, this is a good option for people like me that are really into PS1 shoot 'em ups or, you know, the RPGs on the system. I just posted a picture on Instagram and Twitter, I think earlier this morning. I had a bunch of PS1 games sitting on my dresser. And I was like, God, there's a lot of RPGs on the system. So I just took the games that were sitting on my dresser and, you know, laid them all out and took a picture of them. And I think the caption was like, God damn, there's a lot of RPGs on the PS1. And I don't even own them all. You know, there's a lot of them on the system. But I tell you what, though, you can play them all on this thing for $100 and hook it up to the TV and play when you get home, just like a Nintendo Switch. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I know it was a short video, but I just wanted to talk about my experiences with the PlayStation 1 and the GPD XD. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, guys, peace out.